Okay, how, Pastor, could you speak now? Can you hear me now? Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Can you hear us now? Reverend Erie, please. Okay, let me try this. I just changed settings again. Keep talking, Pastor Erie.
Texts coming 773-763.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, I can hear you both now.
Glucose monitor.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor Erie. Thank you for your patience.
You're welcome.
US Med is an approved provider for Medicare and over 500 private insurers. So call 800-730-8405 today for a free insurance and Medicare benefits check. As easy as that's 800-730-8405.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. During the Civil War, 11% of the Confederate Army was made up of enslaved men forced to join. One of these men was Robert Smalls. Smalls was a deckhand on a butter supply ship known as the Planter. During this time, Smalls learned as much as he could about navigating the ship so he and others could escape. And on May 13th of 1862, while officers were sleeping, Smalls, along with 16 others, took the Planter out of the Charleston harbor, navigating through all 5 checkpoints while heading to open waters looking for the Union blockade. Smalls raised a white flag of surrender, letting Union soldiers board the ship, giving them guns, ammo, and documents about planned Confederate attacks. Being a wealth of information, Smalls was given the role of the Union Navy captain. Stories like Smalls are one of the many factors convincing President Lincoln to allow free African Americans to serve in the Union Army. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family.
How much time do we have?
You got 3 minutes. Roughly 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 6 years. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
I'm Dr. Anthony Lazarow, and this is Climate Connections. On an early fall day in the North End neighborhood of Detroit, residents hopped on bikes for a guided tour of solar installations. Kids built solar-powered robots, played in a solar-powered bouncy house, and ate s'mores roasted in a solar oven.
So people got to see solar in an operation that they never would have imagined. When you can see it, when you can know it's there, then they have a better sense of, yes, this could work for me as well.
Reverend Joan Ross is founder of the North End Woodward Community Coalition, a nonprofit in the largely low-income African-American neighborhood. She says many families in her community struggle to pay electricity bills that are very high. Going solar can reduce those monthly bills. So her group informs people about solar energy, helps them assess financing options, and connects them with quality contractors. It also arranges qualifying discounts to reduce the upfront cost of installing solar panels. Ross is determined to make sure that more people can access clean, affordable energy.
To actually see these things coming to life in my community and the ways that people can embrace solar, it's really an exciting time for me.
Climate Connections is produced by the U.S. Center for Environmental Communication. To hear more stories like this, visit climateconnections.org.
All right, 60 seconds, everyone.
Thank you so
Every
much.
day, teachers are shaping our tomorrows, starting their students on journeys that will change the course of history. Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who will make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who will help combat climate change, and generating possibilities for a student who will be the first in their family to graduate college. It all starts with teachers who meet challenges with creativity, who reinvent education for the future, who work towards a school system that lifts up every child, regardless of race, income, or zip code. and to enable the full potential of our students, our communities, and our country. Explore a career that leaves a
10 seconds.
Thank you so much. Let the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, our strength and our redeemer. Thank you.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Christmas week. Yay. I love it. You know, I'm the Christmas girl. I love it. I hope that you all are planning for a wonderful holiday. And you know what? There might be someone a little lonesome out there. I hope you will see fit to include them in the love. It's so important, everybody. It's so important for everybody to feel some love at this time. So I want you to, I want you to just, let's reach out to some people. Reach out, as a commercial used to say, reach out and touch someone. Reach out and touch someone. All right, everybody, let's talk about this Autumn Roberson Manahan case. This young lady, this teenager, who was on track to become the valedictorian of her class, who was taunted by one of her white classmates in particular. He kept calling her the N-word. And so, I wish we couldn't sanitize the N-word, because she wasn't called the N-word. She was called Nigger. And when white people hear that, we hear death, we hear threats, incites fear, and it's designed to do that. And he kept doing that. No one would come to her rescue. That is, no one in authority at the school. No one. And they did it to the other students. But she was a particular target because she was slated to become the valedictorian. So let's talk about that. Why was she punished so severely? Why? Let's talk about that, everybody. Let's talk about why she was punished so severely. 45 days basically in school jail. And this comes amidst all of this information that shows that Black children are disproportionately disciplined in the United States. Disciplined more harshly, disciplined more frequently than their white and brown counterparts. Why is that? And it leads to lower grades, lower esteem, lower achievement, on and on and on. We have a tremendous panel of people who are going to be talking about that today. It happens here. We've gotten reports about Jones Commercial. I'm getting a little feedback. Not Jones Commercial, Jones College Prep. In my day, it was Jones Commercial High School. But of course, now it is one of the highly competitive high schools in the city. And it happens all over the place. And we've got to talk about that. If my child is not safe, your child is not safe. Because believe me, the unfairness is coming. So let's get right to it, everybody. We've got a lot to talk about today, starting with the good news in Chicago. We're going to have a high of 28 degrees, mostly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 13 degrees. Snow showers. Everybody, Argentina won. That's right, over France. But it was in what has been widely touted as the best, the greatest soccer game, World Cup game ever seen. And it really was incredible. Indeed, you had the two best teams, the two best players in the world who brought their best, and they left it all on the field. Argentina 4, France 2, and the partying is just beginning in Buenos Aires. And so God bless them, and God bless the people of France, because they put up a heck of a fight. It was a tremendous, and tremendously successful World Cup. Congratulations to all involved. In the NFL, the Eagles 25, the Bears, you're breaking my heart, 20. And the Vikings, well, you're first in your division. You're going to the playoffs. Yay, the Vikings 39, the Colts 36. But check this out in this NBA game. Chicago and Minneapolis were facing off. Get this, the Timberwolves 150. Chicago 126. What a game, everybody. In the NHL, the Wild 4, the Senators 2, and the Rangers 7, and Chicago 1. Cannot wait for Chicago to change the name of that team. Goodness gracious. Get over yourselves, everybody. As Border authorities try to prepare for the scheduled lifting of Title 42 this week. Officials in the Rio Grande Valley say they have encountered between 900 and 1,200 migrants during the past 2 weeks. These numbers are reminiscent of the 2019 surge. What are we going to do about this, everybody? We'll be talking about that on the Santita Jackson Show tomorrow. In the meantime, the January 6th committee investigating the 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol is set to make announcements today about criminal referrals to the Justice Department. The panel has weighed criminal referrals for former President Donald Trump. Do you think he's going to get a criminal referral? And what does this mean? Now, you know, Congress's recommendation does not have the teeth. They don't have the ability to put anyone in jail the way, the way the Department of Justice has. But what do you think is going to happen here? Call me. Text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. I want to hear from you right now. Do you think this is going to result in an indictment of President Trump from the Department of Justice? 773-763-9278. Elon Musk said he will step down as Twitter CEO if he's voted out by a poll he tweeted on Sunday. According to the poll, the option yes won by a margin of 57 to 43%, everybody. Now, he'll still be the owner, but he said he'll step down as CEO. What will that mean? Will it mean that he'll be calling the shots from behind the scenes? Will it mean that he's going to just step on over? I don't know. Congress just passed an $858 billion military budget, but the GOP is blocking $12 billion to fight child poverty. Think about that, everybody. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. We've got Pastor Todd Geary, Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland. Of course, he is with Rainbow Push. We need some good news today. Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, Esquire, will be joining us at the bottom of the hour as we talk about this case of Autumn Roberson Manahan and these Black children at the Slayton High School just outside of Lubbock, Texas. It's good to hear your voice. Merry Christmas, Pastor Geary.
Well, good morning, Santita. Merry Christmas to you. I've just got one chant for you at the beginning. Defense, defense. Never mind. 150 to 126. Defense went out the window a long time ago. What in the
was
world?
that?
We just fired it up like on the playground.
Pastor, when I saw the score,
for this?
I said, "Are you serious right now? What happened?"
I just showed up for my check. You want me to play today? Come on, get out of here. I'm on.
Okay.
You know, must have been my kind of game. And the Bears played a great game yesterday. I watched that game while I was having brunch, and I'm telling you, there's a lot of promise on the horizon. So there's a theme in here somewhere, right?
Please help me.
Don't make long-term projections off of short-term experiences. This record, this hardship, as the text will say, is producing a far greater glory that is yet to come. When they get through the draft this year and fill in some pieces, I think as you look down the road, the Bears are going to be dominant in the NFC. You heard it here first.
Well, I'm waiting.
It's kind of like the camp for defense. Never mind.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Just help me,
Let's
please.
get on. I got to help Santita out this morning. Come on, guys. Let's get to it. Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Come on, let's get on with it. Put your feet on the floor. And yes, the weather's changed. The tile is cool, but you'll feel it coming back at you because that's going to be a sign you are alive. So come on, let's get on with it. Let's get to living today. Get that morning beverage going, that morning Joe, that orange juice. Don't forget to drink that water and take a deep breath. Fill your lungs with L-I-F-E, life, and let's get ready to change the world. This is the season. This is the season. This is the week. It's such an important week across world religions, particularly in Judaism and Christianity, as Hanukkah has begun. It's the celebration of the rededication of the temple after its destruction. And as we recommemorate the birth of Christ and the arrival of the presence of God amongst us in human form, this is just a tremendous week. Here's what I want to say to you. See yourself in a better place and begin to build it. And so don't look at your conditions and your difficulties in desperation. Use them for inspiration that you might continue to build for yourself a future that starts first in your imagination. Can you see yourself doing that thing that's in your heart to do? Can you see yourself accomplishing that feat that others are saying?
Who said that? Albertina Walker. Her song was I'm Still Here.
Still here.
I'm still here. And
Yeah.
it means a lot. Why don't you just very quickly give a word to people? You know, a lot of people really struggle in this moment. What do you say?
Yeah.
I mean, because suicides are up and all of that.
Yeah, suicides trend up, depression trends up. This is a season where the reminder of loss in the midst of celebration becomes more profound. But when I've done memorials and funerals, I often refer to this text. It's not that we don't go through things. It's not that we don't face difficulties and grieve. It says we don't grieve as those who have no hope. You still have hope, and hope is the drive from within that things are going to get better. And as you have that drive, you find inner strength to persevere, to overcome, and to see that there is light ahead. Every storm brings clouds, but when the storm is over, the sun returns. And so you're going to weather this storm. You're going to be able to get through it, and you don't have to get through it by yourself. This is really important. Have to be Superman or Superwoman. Reach out to someone, a therapist, a friend, a colleague, a spiritual leader, somebody that can give you a shoulder to lean on and help you tap into that inner reserve so you can keep going. Because this is just the season. And I believe it. The best is still yet to come.
You know, and I want to thank you for that, because as we move into this discussion about Autumn Roberson Manahan, this straight A student, Reverend Dr. Yeary, straight A student. And you know, when you're in high school and you're a straight A student and you're looking at becoming the valedictorian, you are the apple of your parents' eye, ideally. And you're the pride of your community. And particularly, and that happens for everyone, but it takes on particular significance in the Black community because education was denied us for so long. And this is our path up and out, right? And you could see, you know, all the hopes and dreams of a family would be vested in this in this child. and they move to a smaller town. They're hoping that, this will be a nicer environment, nicer than, what we've seen up north. So her parents go back to Texas, and then she's called the N word. And, and I hate sanitizing that, but if I use it when we kicked off the air, but I hate sanitizing it because when we hear NIGGER, we hear death, Reverend Dr. Year. We hear a threat. When we see the Confederate flag, some people can shrug it off. Black folks say, I got to get out of here because this is a dangerous place for me. I might not make it out alive. When we start driving into wooded areas where we can't see a way out, it's just in the DNA. Reverend Dr. Yeary. I remember being in North Carolina when we were in college, visiting my brothers Jesse and Johnny. And you know how college kids, you get in the hatchback and it's about 20 kids in the car. Just, you're stupid in college. And we were trying to find this place, and we rode down a street that became a road that became unpaved. And all these black kids in the car, we said, hey, turn this car around. Too many trees, too much darkness. Let's get out of here. And I can only imagine the fear that she felt. And I can only imagine how targeted she was as this superstar student. And she was driven to the point when they put her in school jail, where she had to put on the uniform of prisoners. And she's dealing with kids who are truant and who have behavioral problems and who are in a lot of pain themselves. She's never been surrounded by these people. She was driven to the point of suicide, Reverend Dr. Yeary. What does that do to her parents? What does that do to her? What do you do when you're faced with that kind of situation?
Oh, well, there's a lot to unpack there, but let's kind of ground it in the history. You tapped on it just a bit. Remember, if you go back and look, there are still laws on the books that have yet to be officially repealed that prohibited the teaching of reading to enslaved persons or their progeny, their children. And there was one law, you mentioned North Carolina. North Carolina's law was particularly egregious in that the punishment for desiring to engage in the educational process, to learn, and for anyone that might teach. If you're a white person teaching a black person, the punishment was worse for the student than it was for the teacher, because they wanted to kill desire. So this is an assault on desire. This is an assault on dreams. Not just for our young sister, but for any like her who would dare set a standard of excellence that others had to publicly acknowledge. And so this is an affront to her excellence, but it is also a sign to other students who are the overwhelming, other black students who are the overwhelming minority in this district. And we'll talk more about it. But these are the microaggressions that come up in the education system across the country, where you use school resource officers as substitute discipline because we've looked at the data around school discipline and there have been legal changes to the process. So now what do? When you don't want to handle it as an administration, you treat it like you're a police officer or something like it. And you hear these similarities, like what's going on down in Texas, where she's literally, the language says, she was sentenced to 45 days in an alternative school. Sentenced based on what? Who sets down this sentence? What's the baseline? What were her rights? What was the due process? All of those things. And at this point, because federal money is involved, the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Education has to get engaged and maybe even restrict the flow of the money to Texas itself from the federal government until there's a full review of discipline throughout the Texas Department of Education across the state. I would be the first one to call for it, even while there is a lawsuit and litigation pending in the federal courts, because this is beyond egregious. It makes ridiculous seem like a word that is so trite that this is offensive, and it is a reincarnation of old behaviors with a new name.
Absolutely. And the boy who did this, the young man who did this, has not been punished. His parents cannot be found, or certainly, now the media knows how to chase people down. They know how to do that. They know how to make your life a living hell. They've not tried to find this young man's parents. Well, certainly they know where he is, but they're giving him cover, like they gave what's the young woman who accused Emmett Till of whistling at her, Carolyn Bryant.
Donna.
And we're like the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. They are holding her records, her confession right now. Please.
Here's how you can find it.
I got 30 seconds.
Fight at school. Yeah, real quick. Everybody in the school knows who was in the fight. Go ask somebody who got their tail whipped that day for doing something. And I promise you, every kid in the school can tell you it's probably on the bathroom wall. All you got to do is go read it. So there's an intentional sanitizing. You're right. But we got to get to the bottom of it and get to it quickly.
We do. And why don't people know about this case? And what does this case say about the American school system, particularly as it relates to Black children? Black children are 4 times as likely to be suspended or expelled from school as white children. Why? Is it because they don't know how to behave? No, there's something else going on here. We're going to talk about that. And when you look at this case, you'll see exactly what is going on. Call us at 773-763-9278. I want to hear what your thoughts are. Got to talk about this today, everybody. Back in just a minute on the Santita Jackson Show. Yeah, Reverend, this is messy. But I think you're going to like Dr. Bayer. I don't know why I keep messing up his name. I don't know. I think it's Bayer. He's been a crusading white gentleman, a brilliant educator here in Chicago. And of course, he was pushed out of the Chicago public school system. He was at one of the top schools here in the city and in the country because he wanted to treat Black and brown children fairly and with dignity. That's really what it came down to. And he was put out of his job, pushed out of his job. But he's a brilliant educator and reformer. And he needs to be more involved with us. We need to be more involved with him. We need to involve him more with Push Excel. Pastor Yuri. Because you've got some people out here trying to make some change, and we need to be connected to them, and they need to be connected to us. So everybody, please like and share. Thank you for being so patient. I have this little Logitech camera that I have been using, but guess what? It just didn't work. It's been going out for days and days and days and days and days. And so now this is the camera that's in my computer. It is working, thank heavens. And so we're just going to keep on going with this. How about that? So thank you very much. And thank you for Chaparral for keeping me on point, but everybody got a chance to see your beautiful photograph. How are you doing, Chaparral? I know you're going to be on air in a hot second. Everyone's been worried about her wrist. Reverend Dr. Yuri, she broke her wrist just as she has to finish up these orders, including mine.
I hope she recovers quickly and is in not much pain. But I hope her coaching skills are real good, because at the end of the day, folks still want that. I'm just saying.
Oh gosh.
People want. We all benefit
so
from Chaparral's gift.
You want what? Banana pudding.
Sending Dr. Bayer, Attorney Patillo, Attorney Jones, and Chaparral through.
Okay, Chaparral. Don't shake your head.
I did. Yes, we've got Dr. Bayer on. We've got Robert Patillo. Do we have Attorney Jones?
I'm here.
Okay, well, you know what? Chaparral broke her wrist, everyone. And as she has to finish up these orders, including mine. But guess what? Before he could even ask how she was doing, he wanted to know where the orders were going. That is Reverend Dr. Yuri. Reverend Yuri, selfish.
I started with, I hope she's recovering nicely and is not in much pain, but I hope her coaching skills are good. That's all I say.
Like I said, comma.
60 seconds, everyone.
Chaparral, how you doing?
I'm good, Doctor. Yeah, I'm getting used to this one arm right now, but
Girl, don't
I'll
speak to
hang it.
him. Oh, selfish. 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 Stand by. Selfish, selfish. But people got a chance to see your beautiful face today, so there you go. Had to move to another camera. Doctor. Whew. Oh my gosh. Always something, y'all. It's always something. I am turning into an engineer here. That's what it forces you to do, Lord. Oh boy, I'm glad to be with you all today, though. Merry Christmas, everybody. And happy
10
holidays to
seconds.
all of our brothers and sisters of all faiths. May the spirit of Christmas be with you in this holy season. Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about this Texas teen on track to become valedictorian of her class who was racially taunted by a classmate. The teachers, the administration, no one would stop him from doing it. She finally struck back, physically struck back, and she was put essentially in school jail, where she had to put on the costuming or the uniform of a prisoner. She became suicidal. I mean, it just kept on going. We got to talk about this, everybody. 773-763-9278. 773-763-WCPT. But everyone's concerned about Chaparral's celebrations by us. You're going to be able to complete these orders, girl. You broke your wrist. First, tell everybody how you doing.
I'm doing well, Santita. I really am. Thank God I have an excellent team. My family has stepped up tremendously to come and help me crank out all these final orders. And, we are still doing it. I'm still working. So we are definitely prepping the orders that we have for this week. We have about 6 orders that we're doing this week. So we'll have them all ready and prepared for delivery on time. So don't hesitate to give us a call, 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We are done taking orders for Christmas, but we will definitely be open for New Year's and thereafter. So call us at 708-526-4546. We can handle all of your catering needs as well as also your balloon arches and decor. So don't hesitate to call us, and we look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Blessings to you. I think we have someone on who you have brought to us, Chaparral. Who is this gentleman?
Dr. Byer. Oh, yeah, he is terrific. And I'm telling you, I'm going to call you soon, Dr. Byer, because Jasmine needs some help. She's taking her LSAT next month, so she needs some help. But, yes, he's a terrific resource, and he is going to be a great asset to your show today.
It has been, and is a tremendous educator and a tremendous reformer, someone who really fights for justice for his students and fights for the education of his students. And we're so glad that he's back with us today. Of course, we have got Attorney Darrell Jones, who's given us brilliant overviews of what has happened in this case in Texas. And Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, Esquire, Rainbow Push. And of course, you are the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Jones, and Rainbow Push Again, and the host on his own show, WAOK, just fresh on the heels of it, 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. Robert Patillo, so glad that you're back with us today. Everybody call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let me do a round robin. I've asked you to do this numerous times, but you do it so well. Give us an overview of what happened to Autumn Roberson Manahan. I mean, taunted for being Black, but she was called the N-word. And I think the sanitization of it, Attorney Jones, is just, it really takes the sting out of it. She was called Nigger. And when we hear that, when we see the Confederate flag as Black people, your defenses go up and you got to get out of there. Because that's danger. When someone provokes you in that way, or seeks to provoke you in that way, or throws that word at you, dangers around the corner. What happened to Autumn, Attorney Jones?
Yeah, good morning, Santita. Young Autumn, she's 17 years old. Her family was living in Ohio and moved to Texas, and moved just outside of Lubbock, Texas, and she was attending Slayton High School, where her parents actually had gone to high school. And when she starts attending Slayton High School, in her first week of school, the teachers, as they often do with new students, asked her to stand up and say where she's from, etc. And she talks about the neighborhood she's from, and one of the white students then goes over to her and says, "I run your block," NIG, and using the word.
And the teacher didn't correct him.
And the teacher did not correct him. And from there, she continues to regularly, almost every day, experience this student and other students using the N-word and addressing her and saying things around her within earshot. Well, she's in gym class, and one of the white students, who is also 17 years old, walks by her and is continually calling her the N-word. She tells the student to stop, and he does not. Now, what precedes this is that Autumn had gone to the administrators, to the teachers at the school, and told them what was happening and asked them to have the kids stop. They did nothing. So this time, the kid is taunting her in the class and the gym, and he has on his hoodie as he's walking by, saying the N-word to her. Finally, she snaps, and she's had enough. And she grabs him by the hoodie and begins to smack him, and smacking him, saying, "I told you to stop." And, so loudly, just with every syllable, smacking him in the face to stop calling me this name. And one of the other high school students caught it on their cell phone and released it into social media. From there, what happens is that Autumn is brought to the school. She and her family are brought to the principal's office, and she's given a 45-day suspension. And she's sent to a disciplinary school, an alternative school. The school that she's sent to is a school that is so intense with racism that she realizes what she's getting into and where they are now sending her. They require the students at this alternative school to wear orange jumpsuits every day. So it's more of a camp or a prison or a jail than it is a school. And once she realizes what's going on and what's happening, she runs away from home. After she runs away from home, she then contemplates suicide. She goes from being the valedictorian, the projected valedictorian of that class, to being a student, to being a patient in a mental hospital. She needs psychiatric care as a result of what she's gone through and what she's experienced at the school and through this experience. So now at this point, the ACLU, the NAACP, the Texas Civil Rights Project, and other organizations have filed a suit, a federal complaint with the U.S. Education Department on their Office of Civil Rights, trying to force the school into some type of compliance for everything that has happened with regard to not only Autumn, but the other 22 Black students that also attend that school. So that sort of in an overview, Santita, is what Autumn is experiencing and has experienced up to this point in time.
About that. Number one, we're both in media. Well, we're all in media, of course. Attorney Daryl Jones and Attorney Robert Arnwine have a show on WOL every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. We see you all over the media, all over the globe. This story hasn't gotten a lot of traction. First, your reaction to the story and the media's characterization of her snapping, and the corporate media not pursuing his parents. A minor, okay, I can understand that. You don't pursue them. But the parents, don't you think they should be made to answer for this?
Well, absolutely. And I think this is part of the role of having independent black media, because we can't depend on anyone else to tell our stories except for ourselves. We're always going to be put through a particular lensing, a particular effort to diminish our pain and suffering and uphold white supremacy. Remember, the point of America has always been and will always remain the sustainment of white supremacy. Actually, John Oliver did a great breakdown on the nature of our media and our press system when it comes to African Americans and law enforcement. And often they end up simply repeating what police officers say, what the government says, what authorities say, quote unquote, as opposed to doing any sort of investigative journalism. We've now gotten into a cycle where fast is more important than accurate, and we start slashing newsrooms, slashing news departments, slashing journalists. You can't dig down into stories. In addition to the pairs being pursued, I think that there should be civil suits against the administrators at that school, all the way up to the highest levels. If this happened to this young lady, it's probably happened before. And if nothing is done, it will indeed happen again. In America, we do not take the mental health of African Americans seriously. We don't take the physical health of African Americans seriously when it comes to medical diagnoses. We are over criminalized. We are over incarcerated. And when you talk about it, you have a big chunk of the American media that calls that being woke. That calls that victim mentality, where you simply are telling them and trying to make changes to the current societal system that we exist within. I do hope and pray that we are able to get the story of this young lady out to the public. We're able to bring her the type of civil justice, as DK often talks about, that is needed to make her whole. But what has to be paramount is helping her survive the trauma, work her way through the trauma that has been placed upon her, and put in place the types of policies that will stop this from happening again in the future. This is an absolutely horrible and tragic situation, and most importantly, it did not have to happen. At any point down the line, before it got to this point, they could have the school or the parents could have put in place any types of remedial measures that would have prevented this from escalating to this situation. And the fact that this young girl had to take it into her own hands to defend herself because the powers that be would not is the true failure of this situation. So in addition to the parents, the entire school system is going to have to reevaluate the policies they have in place. And some people are going to get fired, some people are going to get sued, but justice is going to have to be served for this young lady.
Amen to that. Dr. Michael Bayer, you've been an educator in the Chicago public school system, very highly regarded. You've been a principal. What happened here? What happened with the teachers? In that classroom, when this student, her classmate, said, I run your neighborhood, NIGGER. What should have happened then? And let's just keep on going from there.
Yeah, it should have been an immediate intervention. That child should have been pulled out into a restorative justice room and received some help and support, because that child obviously has some serious issues. Possibly suspended on his part, although suspensions for anybody does not really necessarily work. But that's also been addressed. And the fact that the teacher multiple teachers, it sounds like, did not address the situation, the administration. This is just system failure. And unfortunately, this case, it's severe, but it's the tip of the iceberg, right? This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is endemic throughout our school systems. It doesn't matter what state you're in. You can look at, this Texas town and say it's Texas, but this is in every single state in our country, because, as the other guys mentioned, the Black population, Black students are over-criminalized. And we've all heard of the school-to-prison pipeline, and we're seeing it right here. Because if Harvard's Kennedy School did a research, and found that if a school has a more harsh disciplinary system within the school, those students could have a 15 to 20% higher likelihood of being incarcerated as an adult, right? 15 to 20%. And then if you look at other statistics like the American Psychological Association, that 26% of Black students a quarter received at least one suspension for a minor infraction. And that's something like dress code violation, inappropriate language, using a cell phone class. 26% of black students receive at least one suspension for a minor infraction, whereas just 2% of white students received a suspension for the same thing. And so there you have it right there. You suspend black students at a much higher rate. You discipline them much harshly, and their lives can and will be derailed. And here's a case that is significant, and it's systematic failure. And it needs a complete intervention, and this is the tip of the iceberg, and it needs to be addressed. Every single school, every single district should be forced to publish the rates of suspension of white students, black students, Hispanic, Asian, publish those. How often do you suspend them? What do you suspend them for? Right? Not the names of students, of course. You can anonymize the data, but allow parents. We hear all those arguments about parents' rights, and very often it's against diversity instruction in school. Well, every parent has a right. Black parents especially have rights, and they need to know how harshly their local school disciplines students. Are they disciplining black students at a higher rate? And I almost guarantee you they are in every school in this country.
What's behind that?
It's bias. It's racism. It's historic racism. Hopefully, there is some research that shows that teachers can be trained. And sadly, if I saw one report last night, I was doing my homework for the show, and one report showed that if teachers are taught about growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset, in other words, if teachers are taught that people can grow and learn and change, and then they're also taught something about the child's life, so they have some empathy and understanding for the child, that they're much less likely to discipline and, tag that child with a harsh, coding them in the system in some way more harshly. So teachers can be trained, but that training has to come from the district. That training has to be intentional. And really, and we see right here, there's really no desire at all in too many of our towns and school districts. They just overlook bias.
Reverend Dr. Uri, you are in Baltimore. I know you see this, but we see this writ large here in Chicago. We see this everywhere. What should be done? We see the NAACP has filed suit, and should the Department of Justice get involved? What should be happening now? But even before I even get there, what should be happening in that community, Reverend Dr. Uri?
Well, I think the first thing is that the community has to be made aware of the issue, just like we're having the conversation today, beginning with something happened. Now, what happened? This is now rising to the awareness of folks who have to be stakeholders in the transformation. But I think the other thing that you ask is how do you change the systems? Part of this challenge is there was an intentional indifference to the complaint of a student who was being racially terrorized by another student using intimidation. It's bullying. It literally is bullying. And so there's nothing that's been done to really address the climate, the culture, the environment, because the system is actually complicit in facilitating this hostility.
Let me interrupt you here.
Part of this has to be.
Let me interrupt you here, because I want to ask you this, and I want to ask the panel here, because anti-Black racism is not handled the way other forms of bullying against ethnic groups, religious groups are handled. If you are charged with anti-Semitism, there is hell to pay for that, and there ought to be. And you can just keep on going down the list. But Black people are told to get over it, Reverend Dr. Uri. We're not paid attention to. Our parents, when they go to the schools, they're not paid attention to. There's no price to pay for what happened to this child. She's a child. Some people have called her a young woman. I said, not at 17. No. She is still under her parents' protection. She is still she's a child. She's a child. And these adults need to, and I cannot believe that that this is not a big issue. But we're talking about anti-Semitism and all of these other isms that are poisons in our society. But somehow anti-Black racism is not taken seriously, Reverend Dr. Urey, at all.
Yeah, that a lot of that is grounded in history, right? So if we look at the experiences of formerly enslaved persons and their descendants, the global trafficking in kidnapped African bodies across the world that reinforced a global economy upon which great wealth has been established, and now you reinforce it because the property interest in Black bodies, because they were held as chattels, as property that could be sold and willed, is still endemic, right? The ingredient, though it may have moved further down the label, is still in the recipe. And so if we don't ground this in what is often the assault on teaching the real history of race, racism, and the systematic oppression and kidnapping of African bodies across the world, then it causes folks to kind of say, I don't see what the problem is, because they're operating out of a sense of willful ignorance. And if we don't use these cases, then you mentioned something about being 17 years old. Be really clear that if we don't raise the issue in the media, as this moves through a litigation phase, it is highly likely that a lot of these proceedings are going to be sealed because she is a minor, because there are certain interests that have to be protected. And so that's another tool that they'll use to pull this thing back behind the curtain so that nobody really sees what's going to be adjudicated when this issue gets raised, and what the school system and the state of Texas are ultimately responsible for, because they receive federal dollars to advance public education in the state. And that public education system has not only failed in this instance, they have facilitated the very conduct that has led to the emotional antagonism and bullying of a student who is top in her class and has caused great pain and harm to her that cannot be measured at this time because it's ongoing and it's got to be raised. But the media, to Robert Patillo's point, the media, independent media, have to be on top of this, because at some point, just my suspicion, when these kind of cases come up, there's always an attempt to either secret it away or whitewash it, literally, so that it ends up being so benign that folks believe it's irrelevant.
But Dr. Bayer, why do we not amen to that? Why do we not? It seems to me that anti-Black racism is not taken, doesn't have the same weight as attacks upon other groups do. It just doesn't seem to have it.
Well, overall, it's normalized, part of our society. And you look at the small Texas town, there's a mural in the downtown of Black farm workers working in the cotton field. And it's painted right in the downtown. It's normalized, and when it's normalized, it's like, the water and the fish, is swimming in. They don't notice the water. We don't notice the racism. We don't notice it in our schools. And when people point it out, right for agility, people say you're accusing me of being racist, and how dare you? And I love, all the kids and yada, 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 they suspend others at a higher rate. And so it's just normalized, and people fight like hell against it, against even just talking about it.
And, Robert Patillo, anti-Black racism it's brushed off. Talk to me. Or is this in my imagination?
Well, I think that's part of... Of course, it's not your imagination. It's part and parcel of America. It might as well be written into the Constitution of the United States of America. Indeed, the Three-Fifths Compromise could indeed be seen as the epitome of that when it comes to America, that we still are not treated as being 5/5 of human beings often, particularly when it comes to believing African Americans, when it comes to taking these issues seriously. Listen to Reverend Urey. I just sometimes imagine that this had been a different group, but this had been a LGBTQ student making these complaints, would have taken it more seriously and taken action more quickly. If it had been a Jewish student, for example, given the current national conversation we're having on anti-Semitism, would have taken that more seriously and addressed it before this young lady had to have her entire life ruined by these racist incidents. And for some reason, there still remains this slavery era conceptualization that black folks are just supposed to be stronger and more powerful and able to take abuse and survive through it. No, we are human beings like everyone else and have to be treated as such. And this is why it's so important that we as a community take these issues seriously and really attack them as aggressively as others. I think we've seen in recent weeks the aggressiveness with which other communities defend themselves from any attack. So you saw when Kanye West and others started attacking the Jewish American community, they came together as one across party lines. It didn't matter if you were Jon Stewart on the left or Dennis Prager on the right. They came together to make sure that anti-Semitism was put into its proper place in the U.S. And they, as African Americans in this country, have to do the same thing, coming together, holding hands, and holding these folks accountable, because otherwise it begins to metastasize. And once it begins to metastasize, then we start seeing these groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers believing that they can get away with it, and that simply spurs on more attacks. You have to have a disproportionate response to these actions in order to dissuade people from taking part of them in the future. And this young lady, I think we all need, all organizations need to be wrapping their arms around. Think about how many groups are out here in the name of civil rights and human rights and anti-racism, taking money from people, taking money from corporations and doing not a damn thing with it. I think that it's important that those organizations stand up and actually use their power and their influence and the money they have to defend people like this young girl, because the message has to be clearly sent that this will not be tolerated going forward, and that there are consequences for such, because if they're not consequences, you're simply incentivizing people to repeat it.
Back in just a minute, everybody. We're going to have the first African-American elected to statewide office, Judge Michael Overstreet in Texas, and State Representative Ron Reynolds. Back in just a minute. This is a whole lot. We're on Facebook Live now. I just thought I just had to put that out there, you guys, because whenever Black people start talking about the injury to us, people tell us to get over it. There is no price to be paid, seemingly, for what happened to this child. I mean, the teacher did not even correct or reprimand this boy in the classroom. So, of course, they're gonna amp it up. He and his classmates. Who does that?
Right.
I mean, Daryl, you mean to tell me the media can't find his parents?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened, because with the same boy and another boy in the class, they then, the school responds by saying they're going to take some other actions and encouraging students not to call anyone the N-word. Well, the same student and one of his buddies then start taunting her by one of them starting it out saying nig, and the other kid saying the ger part of it. So that, they're saying they're not saying it all, but they say it in tandem so that it's consistent in being said to her. So, it continued to taunt her and to taunt the other students that are there. And the other piece that Robert was mentioning with regards to the response to the Jewish community had been a Jewish incident. I think it's also important to note that Autumn's family is Jewish. They are Black and they are Jewish. Mm-hmm. So, there is that aspect that is there, and will there be a response as well from the Jewish community to step up for
I don't see them doing that. I don't see them doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see them doing it. I don't see them doing it. And that's a shame. And it's shameful. It's shameful. And we only protect white people here? I think that question has to be asked. And they need to be challenged on that. And they're big enough to be challenged on that. And they're big enough to do better than this. Not just to do better, but to do right. Buddhist, whatever, non-believer, I don't care. No child deserves this. But we know in this society, Black lives, that's why you have Black Lives Matter. Because we have to assert that. It's a terrible thing. I mean, Dr. Bayer, what would you have done if you had heard about this? I mean, would you have reprimanded the teacher? What would you have done?
I would have targeted the teacher to get rid of them. And so I did my first year as a brand new principal. I took over a school in the southwest side of Chicago, and I'd been failing academics for 20 years. And it was a kindergarten through 8th grade school, and you had grown adults who are screaming and hollering at, little children. And, I look at the data and I figured out which teachers were the worst. And I brought them in my office one time and sat them down and said, if you're going to stay here, you're not going to have a career much longer. And I got rid of half the teachers.
Sending through Representative Ron Reynolds and Judge Morris Overstreet.
New staff with a better mindset, and we transformed the school. And that's how you do it. But you need leadership to do it, and you need to be brave to do it. And you don't have enough bravery. You have a lot of cowards who are afraid of speaking up, who are afraid of doing the right thing, who are afraid of being shouted down at board meetings. And you just have cowardice. And I think that's part of the problem with the white community. I am white, and there's a lot of cowardice. People would rather just put their head in the sand and say, I don't want to get involved in that. Because, these extreme racists, and I'll say everyone is a bit racist, very well biased, but these extreme racists they're frightening even to us, right? They're just insane.
This is insane. I want to introduce you all to two giants in our lives. Indeed, the first African American to be elected to statewide office in Texas. And this was just a little more than 20 years ago, everybody. Starting a little more than 30 years ago. We have Texas Judge Morris Overstreet. Of course, Commissioner Rodney Ellis brought him to this show. And he was first African American elected statewide in the history of the Republic of Texas. Let me not forget myself. And he was twice elected to serve on the state's highest criminal appellate court, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. We're so excited to have you. And of course, Ron Reynolds, one of these runaway legislators, the head of the Progressive Caucus in the state legislature. Well, I remember. State Representative Reynolds. We were trying to figure out where you're going to stay in Washington, D.C., but fighting for our rights. And you're joining, of course, the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Attorney Darrell Jones, Rainbow Push, and civil rights lawyer and radio host. Hope you all will be on his show, Attorney Robert Patillo. And we've got Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, pastor of the iconic Douglas Memorial Church in Baltimore, Maryland. Indeed, he was preceded immediately by Senator Raphael Warnock before he went on to Ebenezer, and a brilliant educator and education reformer here in Chicago, Dr. Michael Bayer. Brilliant. And they want to hear what you have to say. And I want us to have a robust conversation about what happened to this child and what's happened, not just her, because all of these Black kids at this school were targeted. She's the one who did something about it. Judge Overstreet and State Representative Reynolds, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to see you. We're on Facebook Live right now, but we'll be coming back up in a minute.
Good morning, Ms. Jackson.
Oh, thank you, Judge Overstreet. I just adore you. Bless your heart. I do. I do. But I correct people when they jump in and call me by my first name. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not from that kind of background. You ask people permission.
Right. Now you have little kids calling you by your first name.
Oh no, I don't tolerate that.
60 seconds, everybody.
No. Yeah. I think
my parents always say you have to put a handle on it. It's either Aunt so and so or Uncle so and so, Mr., Mrs.
Yeah. When you go to Africa, when you go to places where people of color live, you're after a certain age, you're auntie. Or your mom. Right. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not. Maybe that's in my DNA. I'm like, you'll never be as grown as me. Never. Not you. And I'll never be as grown as you. So, so there you all have it. But I'm so glad that you're with us today. But stand by, because we've been talking about this, and what we're really seeking to do,
everyone.
Thank you, is to get this story out, because too few people know about what happened to Autumn and these kids at this school, and also we're just not talking about it. What's happening around the country? Stand by, everybody.
We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, streaming live on WCPT820.com and AM950radio.com, but coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and we have got our Facebook and YouTube audience from all around the world, and you all are weighing in today on this shocking case that came out of Texas, but you shouldn't be shocked. And sadly, you shouldn't be surprised because it's happening every place around the country. There's a UC Berkeley study that shows that Black children are 4 times as likely to be suspended or expelled from school as white kids. And the other studies show the numbers are even higher. What happened to her? We're going to be talking about that with 2 brilliant Texans. Indeed, the first African-American to be elected to statewide office out of Texas, Judge Michael Overstreet, and the head of the Progressive Caucus in the state legislature is joining us. State Representative Ron Reynolds, he's joining Dr. Michael Bayer, brilliant educator, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, lawyer, pastor, Rainbow Push, attorney Robert Patillo, civil rights lawyer, brilliant, Rainbow Push radio host and civil rights lawyer, brilliant, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, attorney Daryl Jones. Let's get to some of these headlines and get to the rest of the show. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 28 degrees, mostly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 13 degrees, snow showers. And Argentina was victorious over France in the World Cup of Soccer, 4-2. What a game. Many people said, you know what? The 2 best teams in the world played the best game ever, and it was exciting all the way to the end. Congratulations to Argentina, and well played, France, well played. In the NFL, the Eagles 25, heartbreaker 20. The Bears, y'all are killing me. I don't care what you say, Reverend Dr. Yeary. I'm hurt. The Vikings are in first place in the NFC. They are on their way to, maybe to the Super Bowl, but certainly to the playoffs. 39-36 over the Colts for them on Saturday. In the NBA, the Timberwolves and the Bulls. Wow, what happened here? 150 Timberwolves, the Bulls 126. Oh gosh, well, I know I shouldn't get emotional when I read these, but that's just heartbreaking. In the NHL, the Wild 4 and the Senators 2 and the Rangers 7, Chicago 1. At least 36 people on a Hawaiian Airlines flight were injured after their plane encountered severe turbulence on a flight from Phoenix to Honolulu. Everybody, keep those seat belts on. Do not let them go, everybody. As border authorities try to prepare for this influx of migrants after the lifting of Title 42 on Wednesday, officials in the Rio Grande Valley say they've encountered between 900 and 1,200 migrants daily during the past 2 weeks. These numbers remain reminiscent of the 2019 surge. We're going to see what's going to happen here. Elon Musk says he will step down as Twitter CEO. He'll still be the owner, but he said he'll step down as CEO if he's voted out by a poll. He tweeted on Sunday, the poll has been closed, but 57% said they want him out. 43% said they want him to stay in. What do you think is going to happen? And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Oh, but let me give you this one. Congress just passed $858 billion in their military budget, but the GOP is blocking $12 billion to fight child poverty. Don't want you to forget that. All right, everybody, let's talk about Autumn Roberson Manahan. What happened to this young lady, this would-be valedictorian of this class, of this school in Slayton, Texas? What happened, everybody? What happened? Why did she snap? Someone with no history of behavioral problems, 17 years of age, on her way to the top of her class. Maybe that was it. I don't know. We do know that she was called the N-word repeatedly, as have her other Black classmates. She asked, and they were never corrected by teachers. They were never corrected by administrators. She had no place to turn. Finally, as they say, snapped. And she went to the young man. She wasn't particularly violent. She just grabbed him by his shirt and neck and slapped him and said, "Do not call me that name anymore." And they put her in an alternative school, which is essentially jail for 45 days. And yet, This young man and his family have been able to walk away scot-free, and we need to talk about what happened down there and what is going on, what's in the water. Call us at 773-763-9278. Let me welcome our newest guest to the show, Judge Michael Overstreet and State Representative Ron Reynolds. Let me start with you, Judge Overstreet. What do you see? I mean, can you... I mean, you're a member of the bar, you're a member of the court. I don't even know what to say. I'm sorry. And I'm from the, the nonviolent wing of civil rights. And I understand this girl. I really do.
Well, good morning, Ms. Jackson, and good morning to your audience, wherever you may be. Yes, my name is Morris Overstreet, Judge Morris Overstreet, originally from Amarillo, Texas. And, Amarillo is probably less than 120 miles from this rural town of Sladen, Texas, where this incident happened. First thing first, you said it all. One, she was 17 years old. And at 17, a child shouldn't have all of the coping skills to deal with all of the pressures that society puts on them. That's why we have parents. That's why we have that safety net. The school should be a safety net with the administrators, principals, and teachers who have the concern of the students at heart. But this was a school with mostly white administrators, all as far as I know, and we don't know all of the facts. But we know there were very few African Americans who attended the school, and I make an assumption that there were very few, probably none at all, African American administrators or teachers at that school. So she was sort of out there by herself. Now, her parents did a great job. As far as we know, her parents approached the school, the teachers, the principals, administration, and tried to get them to deal with it. Obviously, they did not. And so at 17 years of age, she did probably the only thing that she knew to do. Hey, stop doing this. Stop calling me this. Stop making me feel inferior because I am superior. She was a bright student. And so some say she snapped. She just went physical on this young man. But she was the one who was punished. And from all appearances and from all accounts, nothing was done to him. It's a shame, but we're going to do something about it.
What can be done? I mean, can her record be? What's going to happen to her? Because now she's a senior. She's got to apply to college, and she's got to apply to college with this on her record. What happens to her?
That's one of the first things. We're going to take every avenue possible. Throughout the struggle of African Americans, there's been litigation and legislation. Legislation to change rules and laws, litigation to force those who won't do right on their own to do right. And so we're going to put pressure on the administration, whatever we can do to get her record cleared, to get that expunged so it won't be there. We're going to do that. But we're going to put pressure on this school district and those administrators to do something different and make this young lady whole.
State Representative Ron Reynolds. Look, amen to that, because that is what has to happen. Yes. Because to apply to college with this around her neck it is such an awesome burden. I mean, she would be rejected from colleges upon that basis alone. State Representative Reynolds, is this story getting a lot of traction in Texas? And what can be done for this young lady and these other students who have been subject to this same abuse from these students?
Well, first of all, good morning. It's great to be back on your show with such great leaders across the country. Judge Overstreet is a longtime mentor of mine when I was a law student, and I was in a TLIP program with even before that with Commissioner then Senator Ellis. He was the only African American, as you said, on the Court of Criminal Appeals, and he kind of took me under his wings. And when I was in law school near with this incident, I was at Texas Tech Law School in Lubbock. That is the area that you just described where this incident took place. I am outraged. I am currently the chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, and I intend to make sure that we amplify this. No, without your voice and you, my attention, I didn't even know about it until Commissioner Ellis it to me yesterday, and I can't believe it. So yes, we need to elevate this.
Hold on, because you, Commissioner Rodney Ellis, Texas Harris County Commissioner, you head of the Black Caucus, Progressive Caucus, you all are two of the biggest elected officials in the state, and you didn't know about this case. It's not your fault. I'm just trying to find out, how is it that you wouldn't know about something this important? Right. And I have to thank Katie Turr from MSNBC. I happened to be watching her show and I saw this and I was so appalled. I said, wait a minute. What? And I thank her for putting this story out here. And I just grabbed it and just went with it the next day. And Commissioner Ellis was traveling. That's why I didn't call him and bring him on. But I'm so glad that you all are here today, because the fact that you didn't even hear about it.
No, I want to thank you. The mainstream media has not put this out front like it should be. We're going to amplify it. This is something that we should be speaking truth to power. We should do this so that not only can we correct what happened to this young lady who should never have been subjected to this. This young man created a hostile environment for her to go to school. It should be a safe haven to learn. She was excelling academically, and this person subjected her to mental abuse, bullying, and mental trauma. And so, yes, it should be taken into consideration, the extenuating circumstances that led up to her. I don't say, she should be not have any kind of consequences, but the kind of consequence that she received was extreme and outrageous. It shows you that, like Judge Overstreet and Darrell and others know, there are far too many disparities within our criminal justice system that African Americans are treated harshly within our justice system, our really injustice system. And this is another example where you have a school district that in Texas, and let me just say, we're the state that was throwing out CRT foolishness, right? We're the state that fought so diligently, as you mentioned in the opening monologue, of why I was in D.C. taking away voting rights, because African Americans and Hispanics in Texas, who are the majority in the state, have received the brunt of so many disparities, and they're afraid of the majority. They're afraid of the rise in African Americans and Hispanics, and they're trying to take back. They're trying to roll back protections, and you see it in our schools where young Black kids are thrown into suspension and in-school suspension, and there's a pipeline from high school to prison, and they're okay with that. And so we have to be the ones that speak truth to power. We have to be the ones that make sure that we stop this nonsense from continuing to happen on our watch. So I'm thankful that you all brought this to me. I've already sent a note that I gave to our executive director to go out to our members, that's going out today. And we're going to send a letter to the TEA commissioner. We're asking for an investigation. We're going to put eyes on this incident, and we intend to bring it to light so that there can be some semblance of justice for this young lady, so that there can be a stopgap so that this doesn't happen to other students in the future. So I'm outraged, but I'm very encouraged that we have people, and Gary Bledsoe with the Texas NAACP. We're going to bring him in the loop, and any other freedom fighters that want to join our cause, so that we can work together collaboratively to get some semblance of justice for this young lady.
Well, as we go into this investigation, it's a relief to hear. Judge Overstreet, is there anything that this young man should be charged? This her classmate should he be charged with anything? I mean, it seems that from what, I mean, just a preliminary overview of this case, it seems that he was not punished at all, reprimanded even.
I think that he should. But let's just look at maybe a breakdown in the system. And when I mentioned earlier about litigation and legislation, litigation is designed to make a person whole. And if we have to litigate to make her whole, we're going to litigate to make her whole. I have relatives who live in that town, and I've reached out to them to give me the contact information for her parents and her grandparents so that they will know that help is on the way. And we're going to do something. When we talk about legislation, administrators and teachers ought to be held accountable for actions that happen under their watch. In criminal law, we have the offense of parties, where you can be held responsible for the conduct of someone else. If you aid, if you assist, if you encourage. And sometimes you can encourage conduct by not preventing conduct. And so if there's a way to charge the administrators and teachers in that school, we're going to seek that. We're going to go to the courthouse to seek justice for this young lady. Now, it is obvious that they brought it to their attention, and they did nothing. They did nothing to stop it. They were ineffective. And so in my mind, from a legal sense, that's aiding this young man in doing what he did because they encouraged him by not discouraging him from doing it. So, yes, what can be done? We're going to find out, and they're going to find out. But I just want to reach out to the parents. When I contact them, I'm going to tell them help is on the way.
Well, amen to that.
And Santita, let me add to that. One of our freedom fighters that I team up with a lot, Dr. Candace Matthews, who has worked with your father with Rainbow Push and bringing it to expand it in Houston, and also with the Texas Coalition of Black Democrats. She's listening in, and she said, "Ron, I'm ready to join you guys. When do we meet? And I'm ready to help to fight to protect this young lady." So we already mobilized, and we already have people that are ready to join us in this fight. And so, again, thank you for bringing this to our attention, because this should be something that should not be this should spread. Should be viral. This should be one of those things that everyone is talking about. And so we're about to raise the ante, and we're about to make sure that we mobilize to ensure that they know that the state with the largest African-American population in the country, which is Texas, a lot of people don't know that, but it's Texas, that we will not allow this to continue to happen, to see our children continue to be mistreated and treated like second-class citizens. So this young lady is going to know pretty soon, starting today, that there's an army of people that are standing by her side, and her and her family don't have to go with this alone.
Well, you know, her and her family and these other children, because now the independent newspaper out of England, they said it's a body of kids. I mean, all of her classmates, all of her Black classmates were subjected to this kind of abuse. She, of course, retaliated. Or should I say she reacted? I mean, I am reluctant to say that she snapped. But, you know, I don't know what it is, Judge Overstreet. People expect Black folks to take this abuse, and we're just supposed to take it. And, you know, and then once we've taken it, you forgive me. You come up in my church and you shoot everybody, but you want me to come to court the next day and forgive me. I'm like, are you serious right now? No, and I'm trying to be Christian. I'm working on it. But I'm here to tell you, wait. This is a process.
Well, Ms. Jack, you know, I looked at some of your history. Of course, you know, your father, great civil rights leader. But I always like to know my audience. That's what good lawyers do. And I know that you were accepted at Harvard and had some issues there with the thought processes of other people. Because they really prejudged you based on your father's activity, which they didn't necessarily like, and you ended up going to Harvard. I'm sure you.
I started going to Howard.
Howard.
I applied to Harvard because I was a merit scholar, and they and Yale and all the other top schools called me. And my father said, I think it's important for me to say, Judge Overstreet. My father saw me throwing out their letters because I already had a full scholarship to Howard and Spelman. And that's all my mother asked me to do when I went to college, because my father lived under threat of assassination. She said, I need you to be able to pay for college. I said, okay, finish at the top of your class at the top school in the city. Great. Okay. I got the scholarship to Howard and Spelman. I was good. My father said, I want you to have the option of going to Harvard, Yale. Just apply to both of those places. That's all. So Howard was not like second tier for me. It was first tier. Just had to say that.
Right.
1 minute though, it goes to you. I had to say that.
But we have to seek a good environment for all of our children. You know, when it says it takes a whole village to raise a child, that's what we really need. And what happened to Miss Manhattan, Autumn Manhattan?
Oh, Manhattan.
Slayton, Texas is it Manhattan?
Yes, it was a little interesting. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Well, I just looked at the article. But anyway, what happened to this young lady is probably not uncommon, and probably happens to thousands of our young African American males and female students all over the United States. And sometimes when you feel like you're helpless, you feel like you're hopeless, and you don't know where to go, and just try to ride it out. I know Slayton. I've been to Slayton. I'm outraged, just like Representative Reynolds is outraged by this conduct and lack of action. And I just hope that maybe through the legislative process, we can put pressure by law on administrators to do something to those who perpetuate crime. And I'm like you. I'm not willing to say this young lady snapped. I'm not willing to say that all she did was she reacted in a situation that was probably consistent with her age and maturity.
Well, hold that thought. Hold that thought. I've got a hard break. Yeah, she didn't snap. Snap implies that she went crazy. No, she didn't go crazy.
Correct.
She didn't do that. Back in just a moment on the Santita Jackson Show. Judge Overstreet and State Representative Reynolds, I want to bring Reverend Dr. Yeary and Attorney Robert Patillo. Robert Patillo, you need to have them on your show. Attorney Jones, you need to have them on your show. Dr. Bayer, you need to tell us about, he is a brilliant educator, white gentleman, and that's only relevant here because he was fighting for black and brown children. He was fighting for all children. But of course, when you are fighting for justice for children, just all across the board, white, black, brown, yellow, or red, you really have a difficult time. And so I just want you all to consider yourselves introduced. Judge Overstreet.
Yes. Well, I just think that when you're fighting for justice, it doesn't matter. You're fighting for justice. I've been pursuing justice and defending liberty since 1975 when I got out of law school. And I put that I want people to know when they hear from me that you're dealing with a man who is pursuing justice and fighting for and defending liberty. And that's what we're going to do in Autumn's case. We're going to marshal all of the resources that we have, as Representative Reynolds said, that now that we know, it's up to us to do something. This is not something that's going to be swept under the rug. And I've known for less than 24 hours, and I've already put my people in place to reach out to this family and to let them know that help is on the way. And I'll be making a trip to the Panhandle. I own businesses in Amarillo, less than 120 miles away. And we're going to do something about this. This is not the end of this. I'm going to push the legislature to do something. And through Representative Reynolds' position in the legislature, we're going to see what can we do to force administrators to act when they have a report like this. Bullying is against the law. Bullying is against the law. So where's the prosecutor?
Yeah.
Why isn't the prosecutor trying to prosecute someone for bullying this young lady? And that's exactly what the person was doing, bullying that young lady. Bullying is against the law.
Santita,
yes.
My apologies. I didn't drop the FBI's on the other line about a report last night, so I got to go talk to that agent. So thank you so much for everything you're doing, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Dr. Bayer, thank you so much. God bless you.
Okay.
Ooh-wee. This is, you know what, Robert Patillo, you've got to have them on your show because corporate media, I don't need them. When we had Jet and Ebony, we weren't even thinking about corporate media telling our story. We're the ones who have to do it, Robert and Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you're
60 seconds, everyone.
Have to ensure that we're giving voice to these stories, because if you wait for it to pop up on the headlines in the New York Times, you're going to be waiting forever. So we have to ensure that we are putting our own stories out there.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I agree with you there, Robert. And and I also wonder when we talk about what we do in response, not only to her but to the other students.
Yes.
How do you heal the psychological scars that by this? I mean, just her perseverance, obviously, to be the valedictorian, the close to valedictorian of the class, enduring all of this. But now, how do you heal those scars, that she's experienced going forward? I just don't know.
I mean, do you sue for that, Judge Overstreet? I mean,
I think Texas has an anti-bullying.
Hold that thought. I want you. I've got 10 seconds before I come up. I want you to speak to that very quickly. I need you to ask that question, Daryl, and then pitch it to the judge.
Change the world. Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, 773-763-9278. Many of you are surprised by this story about young Autumn Roberson Manahan, the would-be valedictorian who'd been called the N-word. She and her classmates. Let's not isolate her because she was not alone, but she felt alone because she was called the N-word in I guess we would call it division in her homeroom. And the teacher did nothing, said nothing. This guy said, oh, that's where you live. Well, I run your block, Nigger. And the teacher said nothing, tacitly giving permission to everybody else to have open season on this girl and these black kids at this school. And we've got to talk about it. Judge Morris Overstreet, first African-American elected to statewide office in the great Republic of Texas. State Representative Ron Reynolds. Want to thank you. And of course, we have got Attorney Daryl Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition, partnered with Attorney Barbara Arndwine. We've got Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Rainbow Push, pastor of the iconic Douglas Memorial Church, Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland, and Attorney Robert Patillo, civil rights lawyer, Rainbow Push, host of his own show on WAOK, as is, and you, of course, you and Attorney Arndwine host your own show on WOL Radio in Washington, D.C. But Attorney Jones, you had a question for Judge Overstreet.
Yeah, thank you, Santita. One of the things with Autumn and everything that she was experiencing at the school is just so heavy, psychologically, that she's gone through, and as well as the other students. And while we talk about helping her and getting out to her, I just wonder, Judge, how do you heal the psychological scars that this young lady has now experienced? And she's gone through so much that has driven her to mental health therapy. How do you begin to heal those psychological scars so she can continue to prosper educationally and throughout life?
Well, obviously, she's going to need some counseling and she's going to need some professional help. Now, I want to point out that there was a Senate bill signed in 2017, September 1st, Senate Bill 179, that really applies to this situation. It's called David's Law. It relates to harassment, bullying, cyberbullying of a public school student or a minor, and encouraging certain mental health programs for public school students. And so we have to make sure that the school who did this, the school who allowed this, provide the resources to help heal Autumn. This applies to every school in Texas. It's called David's Law, after a young man who had been bullied and things of that nature. But that's how you do it. Autumn has to know that there are people who care. Autumn's parents have to know that there are people who care and are willing to help and to stand in the gap for the parents. Not only Autumn's parents, but the parents of all of the students who attended that school. And you're right, Ms. Jackson. Autumn was not the only one. She was just the only one who reacted that way. Because it seems like, from what we know, that this young man was unrelenting in his bullying and his harassment of Autumn. And she did everything right. He did everything wrong. But she is the one who is being punished, and he's the one who's being rewarded. There's something wrong with that picture. And you don't have to be a genius to figure out what's wrong with that picture. But also, if you've lived in America, we know why that picture is the way that it is.
Well, but I think it's key to say she did everything right. She went to the authorities, to the authoritative figures in the classroom. I mean, first of all, I would have been so shocked if someone called me the N-word in my classroom, and I would have been shocked that my parents, that the teacher did not react to it. Like, well, oh my goodness, where am I? And I know that she and these other Black children felt absolutely naked and vulnerable. And that is what's so heartbreaking, State Representative Reynolds, that these kids were walking around in that school feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, and academically unsafe. Because this kind of harassment does things to your mind. It makes you achieve less. And when then you are the one who you're 4 times more likely to be suspended or expelled from school. So that already, it puts you on a downward spiral. And I believe she was targeted because she and still is a stellar student.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I just want to say this, that there is also an escalating rise in suicide among Black students. Yes. And let's not be lost on the fact that this incident and similar incidents lead to the rise in incidents of suicide. And it used to be an anomaly with an African-American student committing suicide. And now, in the post-COVID, those numbers have went up exponentially. And so this incident could have ended tragically by her taking her life. That's how serious it is. And that's how we have to take it serious, because you don't know how a student's going to handle that type of bullying. And it could impact their grades, their self-esteem, mentally, physically, emotionally. Judge Overstreet says she needs counseling. The emotional trauma, that being stigmatized, being outcast as inferior or a second-class citizen, even though she was excelling academically, she could feel that, this wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have been out front. So maybe I don't need to be so smart, or I don't need to be this. So who knows? But she never should have been subjected to any of it, nor should these other African-American students. There could be a pattern, a practice, and a culture of racism and discrimination that's lurking at this campus, at this school. And the teachers turned a black eye. They're complicit. They're equally responsible if they turn a blind eye to what is happening to her and her classmates. So all of them have, I'm gonna use an extreme word, blood on their hands from this young man who probably this was learned behavior from his parents. So yeah, we got to step in the gap and be the villagers that are willing to come in and help these other students and making sure these teachers and administrators, everyone who failed her, is held responsible.
I don't think your language is extreme. She did plan to kill herself. At 17, being a top student, I've been there. That is your identity. And to see the pride in my parents, in my father's voice when he called the house, when he looked in the newspaper and saw my name on the National Merit finalist list, I'll never forget that as long as I live. And he said, "Oh my God, Malcolm and Martin didn't get a chance to see this. I can't believe." And that's my own personal experience. And he said, the fact that you've done so well means that your brothers and your sister, you've set the pace for them. So if anything happens to me, I'll rest easy. That's what this girl is living with. Mm-hmm. And Judge Overstreet is just heartbreaking to see that they would try to break her spirit in this way.
And they're going to pay. And I want to call upon Representative Reynolds to do what he can legislatively, because the law that was passed, and he was a member of the legislature then, it encourages school districts to establish a district-wide policy related to bullying prevention and mediation, and reporting of these incidents. And so we're going to the word should be, it shouldn't encourage school districts. It should require school districts to establish a district-wide policy relating. And so maybe we can amend that law to say, instead of encourage, it's a mandatory requirement that school districts establish a district-wide policy related to bullying, prevention, and mediation.
Absolutely.
We have laws on the books. Like I said, it's litigation and legislation. If we need to amend the law, let's amend the law.
I mean, Reverend Dr. Urey, what role does the church have in all of this? Because you've got some of the biggest Black preachers in the country who are in Texas. Many of them, I'm not going to hold them to account, because if Commissioner Ellis didn't know, if State Representative Reynolds didn't know, if Judge Overstreet didn't know about this case, who knows about this case?
Yeah. One, first, it's good to be on with Judge Overstreet, and Rep. Reynolds and I have been working on a couple of issues inside the Texas State Department of Education. Alvin Independent School District has a number of issues in terms of its treatment of Black students, particularly those with special needs. There's something endemic inside the Texas education system and how the state manages the responsibility to provide equal access to education for all of its students. But to Judge Overstreet's point about litigation and legislation, that is this moment. That's exactly where we are. And so the church's role, the faith leader's role, is not just amplification, but mobilization, because between elections, which is often where we see a lot of engagement around getting folks to vote for certain candidates, is then we have to provide the inspiration by our presence when school board meeting is happening, when city councils are meeting, when the legislature's in session and there are hearings on bills, that when faith leaders show up at the meeting, and you don't have to even have anything on the agenda, your very presence is going to change the tone, the tenor, and the outcome of the process, because what they don't want to see is Black preachers, Black people of faith, interfaith communities coming and sitting out, watching what they do in the room where it happens. Because what Judge Overstreet would have to enforce would be the outcome of what's done in the rooms where Representative Reynolds participates in that process. And if they don't have the cover of the community, making sure that there are eyes and ears protecting the process, then we're going to continue to get short shrift in terms of how these policies are first created, and then also how they're enforced. So in this moment, it is, all right, when's the next school board meeting? And let's go to the school board meeting in Slayton, Texas, and look the superintendent and the school board members in the eyes and ask them, what you doing about this? And if you go, I promise you, cameras are coming with you because they want to see what y'all talk about. And public meetings are open, so we get to have a forward-looking, forthright conversation about what are you doing to make sure that every student's right to an uninhibited access to education is actually going forward. And how do we stop victim blaming? We cannot make Autumn the one ultimately responsible for the hostility she had to endure while trying to keep her grades up, trying to keep her head focused, trying to graduate from school, trying to do all of these things. And now we want to say that you're the one, and the word that's used in the press is quite telling. She's sentenced to 45 days in an alternative school. It carries with it a punitive act that ultimately she, and she alone, is ultimately responsible for what's happened here. And so faith leaders, go ahead, put your collars on, wear your robes if you have to, but put the school board meeting on your agenda, on your calendar for the week, and just show up and watch how quickly things are going to change.
Because you do need street heat. I mean, Judge Overstreet. And because the fact is, she's been criminalized. She was sentenced to this alternative school. I mean, to a school for truants, for troubled children, who many of whom are violent and who were put there because they were violent. She has been criminalized. And I mean, to go from being this top student to that in an instant has got to be mind-blowing. But to see the whole community is complicit, Judge Overstreet. You know, so we need legislation and we need education because everybody is in this.
Okay. I'm just looking at the calendar. I just pulled this up on the internet. You know, this internet sometimes can be pretty fantastic.
Yes.
The regular board meetings are scheduled for 7 p.m. on the second Tuesday of each month. Now, I guess we've missed that opportunity in December. But they've got another meeting coming up, a school board meeting on January 10th, 2023 at 7 p.m. There in Slayton, Texas. And I think what has to happen is we have to have a presence at that meeting. In fact, we have to write the president of all of the school board members. I'm sure their names are public because I'll find them. You know, you can't hide with this internet now. Can't hide. And let every board of trustee member know what happened, and we want them to address it, and we want them to publicly put out their policy about anti-bullying based on the law that's in effect right now. So yeah, we're gonna call them out.
Oh, I get. Well, we'll be covering it, no question. I mean, Robert Patillo, what role does the corporate media have? And does corporate media, independent media? What should be happening now?
Well, we're gonna give you something to cover. I promise you that. Yeah, you're gonna have something to cover.
And I think that's exactly it, that we have to make sure we're using every corridor possible. So that includes social media, making sure we get a hashtag out there flowing, that we are going to Black Talk Radio, which is still one of the most powerful voices in the Black community, social media influencers, etc. Because it's always interesting to me. Folks get an attitude with you until you show up with a trending topic on Twitter, and all of a sudden they want to make changes. So we're going to have to work together on this, but I think we can make some real social change.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And I hope that you will be on his show, which is on WAOK, of course, the iconic radio station down in Atlanta. And of course, attorney Daryl Jones with attorney Barbara Onwine there on WOL tomorrow at 12 noon. We just have to put the story out there, Judge Overstreet. We really do.
Well, I think so. I just looked up these board members, and lo and behold, they have one African-American member on there, Gabriel Johnson. And then they have a young white man, Justin Martin, Irma Camarillo, Jaime Diaz, Carlos Betancourt is president, Karen Newcomb is vice president, and Greg Schilling is the secretary. We're going to see how they like their names in the newspaper.
Oh my word!
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to draft a letter today to all 7 of them. And make them aware of this if they're not aware.
Whatever we can do, put them on notice. Whatever we can do, I'm going to connect you to Reverend Jackson, to my father when we get off the air. You and State
By any means
Representative
necessary.
Oh, I mean it, because this is happening all over the country to our children. This is one example, State Representative Reynolds, one example. But we cannot let this stand. And we have to call media out for not reporting this story. Had I not been watching Katie Tur last week, I would not have known about this story. It's been hidden in the bowels, State Representative Reynolds. I mean, anytime you didn't know about it, I mean, what is that?
No. I was shocked when Mr. Ellis told me yesterday. I said, "What are you talking about?" And he sent it to me. I said, "Wow, this was going on in our own backyard." They sure buried this story. So I was really appalled and just grateful that he told me I could, be engaged. And so this is a microcosm of what happens all over the country, and more particularly, in Texas school districts. So, Judge Overstreet read what the law is, but we know the law is only good if it's followed, right? I mean, in terms of legislation. So this could be one of those deals where they said, well, no one's enforcing it. There's no accountability. There's no teeth. And that's why, I'm happy to work with, individuals that are on this, this call this morning, because we're the ones that have to be on the front line and defending those vulnerable people, like this young lady who should be in the best part of her life. You're a senior, you're optimistic about your future, you're young, you shouldn't be dealing with this crap. I mean, it's bad enough they have to deal with, school potential gun violence. And this is just another layer that this young lady had to deal with. So I'm equipped, I'm armed, and I'm joining in with each and every one of you and others who already volunteered to help, like Dr. Matthews and others who are like-minded. And we're going to make sure that we work with the clergy and the faith-based community as well to amplify this, to make sure that the school district knows that there's a whole army of folks across the state and, with this call across the country that are watching,
I mean, because, the fact is, Judge Overstreet, I mean, I've got about a couple minutes before we go off the air here, but we're going to continue on Facebook Live if you can stay with me just for a few more minutes. The fact is, whenever you share this story with anybody from all over the country, number one, it resonates. You're not surprised, but you are appalled. You are outraged, because this is happening to our children routinely. And anti-Black racism in particular, there is not a price that people pay for that. You can't mess with any other group, but there's open season on Black people. And for Black people, first, that must be unacceptable. You cannot allow people to mistreat you this way. You are somebody. You do not deserve this, and you should not take this. This child, Autumn, is not crazy. She did not snap. She was pushed beyond the break. She had to do something, because when someone calls you an Nigger, violence is on the other side of that, and you know it. Well, I see the Confederate flag. I know there's a problem, and I need to get out of there. I know I don't need to sit up in that dining room. I know, Judge Overstreet, I got to go.
Yeah, you got to go.
I got to go. I've got 1 minute for you.
Notice. Well, you know how if you turn a light on, if there are roaches on the floor, they start scattering.
Yes. Thank you.
We're going to put the light on these roaches. We're going to put the light on them. And it's going to be a hot light. It's going to be a bright light, and it's going to be on them until they go. And we're going to put the school board on notice, each one of the trustees. We're going to put the superintendent on notice. We're going to put the principal on notice. I'm going to talk to those parents and get their consent to intervene on her behalf.
Well, you know,
and we're going to use.
This is interesting because I want you to stay with me just on the other side of this as we go on to Facebook Live, because Marlene Balden has said that Autumn would sit during the Pledge of Allegiance, and that may have had an effect on the teachers who may have taken it personally as a rebellion against them. Number one, in America, you can't have it both ways, Marlene. You can't have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, all these freedoms that we are supposed to have, and then object to people if they refuse to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. If they kneel while we are singing the national anthem, which is not as old as the founding of the Republic is. You can't have it all ways. We're supposed to have the freedom to do that. In America, you're supposed to have the freedom to do these things. If she sat, why don't you ask her why she sat? If that, in fact, is true. Why?
Well, usually when you doing the Pledge of Allegiance, you're looking at the flag.
With your hand over your heart.
Autumn was up there, unless Autumn was up there next to the flag, I don't know how they saw her. They should have been looking at the flag anyway.
How about that?
That's what I told one of my coaches. He said, you didn't place your hand over your heart when they sang the national anthem. And I said, well, Coach, I wasn't up there next to the flag, so how did you see me? You should have been looking at the flag yourself.
Judge Morris Overstreet. Now you see why he was the first African-American elected to statewide office in the great Republic of Texas. Stay right there, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. We're going to get some closing thoughts from our tremendous panel because he's issued a call to action. There are things, State Representative Reynolds, this is not a Texas story. This is an American story. And we are all taking it and we're moving forward with it. I love you, everybody. God bless you in this Christmas week. Unto us a Savior has been given. The good news is here.
Love you.
Rise up, everybody. Rise up and make America what it's supposed to be, in this world what it's supposed to be. I love you, everybody. See you on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel.
Okay.
All right. You know, what are your final words for what else? What has not been said, Judge Overstreet? Because you have said a whole lot, because you've been just like a judge. And a lawyer, you've been digging while we were on the air, finding people.
Right. And all we're going to do is ask them to follow the law. And I see a few things in this legislation that needs to be changed. See, when you say may, it's not mandatory. It's permissive. It's you may do it or you may not do it. You can do it if you want to, or you can't do it if you don't want to. But see, that's the first thing that needs to be changed. And so we've got Representative Reynolds, and he's in a position to change that may to shall. When it says shall, it is mandatory. Because we can't leave it up to the folks who want to do wrong to police their own actions. And we have something here that we can tweak just a little bit. That'll make the difference. And then when they don't follow the law, that's when you can get in after them.
Why is it important for all of this, for this to be codified into law? Why is that important?
It's important because then you can enforce it at the courthouse, whether it's the state courthouse or the federal courthouse. And then when people break the law, then you can ask the prosecutors to intervene. Commissioner Ellis said, something a long time ago that I agree with. He said, you're right, your vote matters. Going to vote matters. And all of these school board members, they're elected. And we're going to put pressure on them. But I'm so glad that someone brought this to my attention. Because I'm in a position to do something about it. And we're all in a position to do something about it. And I'm going to point out what we can, just like I pointed out to Representative Reynolds. I want him to look at that law, Senate Bill 179, that was signed by the governor of Texas on September 1st, 2017, this Davis law combating bullying in schools, and see how we just need to change that one word from may to shall. May to shall. That ought to be an easy fix. I don't see how anybody can be against it, especially if the light is on.
But that is so important. I mean, Attorney Jones, are you still there?
Oh, yes. I'm here. I'm listening.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. But, one of the things that Judge Overstreet said that I think really I'd like to highlight is that the Slayton, Texas Board of Education will be meeting on January the 10th of next year. I think that everybody that's available needs to make their New Year's resolution to get to this Slayton, Texas board meeting and become active and involved in helping not only Autumn and its kids of students of that school district, but the school districts all around the country, wherever it's happening. This is one of those New Year's resolutions, and it's just perfect timing for it to really to step up and to step into the involvement and being a member of the community that's protecting the kids. And that's what I think this is all about. And I tell you, one of the things that Representative Reynolds said that, and I'm 100% on board with it, is that we've got to also look at the elected school boards that are going on here.
Absolutely.
And we've got to be certain that we are, either running for those school board positions or holding those school board people accountable and being certain that we're registered and voting and understand who it is that we're voting for in those elected school boards. Those are the big pieces that from our conversation today, Santita, and those are certainly some of the charges that I'd like to send out is for everyone to take the mantle of involvement, be certain that you're registered, and then start aiming on these school board meetings to see where people are, particularly in Slayton, Texas.
You know what? And Judge Overstreet, start registering these kids to vote. First thing we need to do
add something what
that.
I just said.
Yes, sir.
About the school board meeting in January. See, I already know that it's going to be impossible for a lot of people to attend that meeting. Okay? People who are listening to your show, they may live in New York or California. They're not going to attend that meeting. And so I'm going to give them a manageable task. Go to the Slayton Independent School District Board of Trustees, and their names are published. The administration's mailing address is there. I'm not going to ask you to be present on January the 10th, but start a letter writing campaign. If you can't be there, write a letter. All of their names are there. It's just like you send them a Christmas card. Tell them that you support Autumn. Tell them that what happened to Autumn was wrong and you want them to act. That's all you have to do. And just inundate their mailbox. Make the mailman have to take a wheelbarrow to take their mail to them. Okay?
Now, where do we go?
All these folks not going to be. You give them a manageable task. Now, everybody ought to be able to write a letter.
The Slayton, what is it now?
Slayton, Slaton, Independent School District. That's in Slayton, Texas. Go to their website and get the names and addresses of their board of trustees. Don't send them necessarily to their house. Their house numbers are not on there, but send them to the administration. To each one of those trustees, a letter writing campaign. Let them know that we know and we watch it.
Okay.
And Judge, is the Board of Education meeting online? Can people watch it online?
I don't know. I'm gonna let me go back to their meetings. Okay.
Yeah, because I would want them to. I would certainly want to see that.
They have Facebook, they have YouTube, and so they have this. They're involved in the social media, so people Facebook them. I don't know how to really do it, but I know you can.
We'll figure it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Don't you worry.
Just sitting here just doing a little research while we talk it, but I know you can get in touch with them.
Okay.
And you know what? That might be a good suggestion. That I know they have, they strain their board meetings. Yeah, it said they strained their board meetings. Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, when Jussie Smollett was in trial here, his judge, who was a pretty outrageous guy when you dug into his record, his judge turned off the cameras, refused to have the cameras rolling during his hearing, during his trial. And one of Jussie's lawyers accused the judge, and there were witnesses, of physically lunging at her. But of course, the cameras, wink nod, were off. So you got to make sure, have your phone with you to capture everything. Capture everything.
That's right.
Oh yeah, this guy physically lunged at this this woman. Whew. Wow, wow. Reverend Dr. Yeary, we have some marching orders.
Right. Put it out there on with all your friends on Facebook or whatever your social media is, and let's just light it up. We're gonna put Slayton on the map.
Look, I agree with that.
Put Slayton in the and it's gonna be easy to do.
You got Slayton, you got Alvin, you probably got other places in the state. I think the State Department of Education needs to be reviewed for its implementation and enforcement of federal civil rights law in public education by the Department of Education. There should be a review of the policies and the practices in these independent school districts because there are federal dollars attached to it. There's certainly, I think, purview and jurisdiction for the federal government to come in and actually help ensure that not just in this instance, this is an important one, but if we don't do the systemic change, because the legislature may or may not come along. Rep. Reynolds has a difficult task, right? He has the Progressive Caucus, but we know how politics sometimes gets played. We've got to pull all of the levers and apply pressure at all of the relevant points to make sure that not only is Autumn's issue addressed, but that the system is made better for all of the students. And when Rep. Reynolds said there are more Black folk in Texas than any other state in the country, well, that makes a whole lot of sense to me since Texas found a way to hold on to enslaved persons for a long time till Juneteenth. So I would imagine that they're a little behind on a few things, including education enforcement. So now's the time for us to help them out and create another version of Juneteenth in public education in Texas. That's just
you talking.
Well, let me tell you something else I found. Just looking at this little old website, they have an election coming up. For the two at-large positions. Anybody can file between January 18th and February 17th, 2023 for the election in May of 2023.
But to show you how prophetic you are, Attorney Jones, why don't you tell them what Ahmaud Arbery's family did? This is before the show. This is before their story had gotten national traction. What did they do with the prosecutor?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In the Arbery case, in the Ahmaud's case, the prosecutor was up for re-election there in the county, in Glenn County, and what the family did, because the prosecutor actually told the police not to arrest the three men that killed Ahmaud, and then started to hide and lie to the family with regards to what happened. What the family did, and they were beyond the time at that point for anyone to run against the prosecutor. And what the family did is they got together with the community and they got a petition. And they were able to get sufficient number of names on the petition to put another name on the ballot to run against the prosecutor there. And then after they got the name on the ballot, they worked with the community, and for the first time in Glenn County's history, a sitting prosecutor was defeated in that election. So, certainly, they took the bull by the horns to get rid of what was just a really bad prosecutor who was not protecting the interests of the community.
You know, and you know, in my to my way of thinking, some of these folks, some of these black parents need to, and maybe Alderman's parents need to be first among them. They need to run for these at large positions on this board.
There you go.
The other thing at this school board meeting, to Judge's point, is you want to create a public record. You want to get the school board members to speak on the record directly to an issue, because you want to be able to capture their words and get them to kind of take a stand. The other thing is you got to start identifying now who are going to be your candidates to run for those at-large seats. And that's where I think faith leader engagement helps with that, because not only do you bring a pool of voters, you also bring a pool of potential candidates. You've got educators who understand the system. You've got professionals who understand process. You've got lawyers who understand law, right? That's where we have to begin to start challenging the process. And as they see the heat coming, to your point, Santita, about street heat is not always just marching in the streets aimlessly, right? Sometimes it is creating the movement for facilitating change by leveraging the process. And when you've got a block of voters, when you look at the history of how many votes we need, when we raise the money to support the candidates to get their word out, you have an entire ecosystem developing that can begin to transform these havens of just kind of outdated thinking and practice and start putting justice back on the table. That's what Judge Overstreet's talking about. That's what Rep. Reynolds is talking about. And that's not just a Texas issue. That's in all 50 states where we're seeing these kinds of microaggressions and macroaggressions, right? Where there's systemic indifference and even overt hostility being perpetrated against students. You got some in Illinois where the state attorney general there has had to ask for disciplinary data from certain school systems where you've got disproportionate enforcement by SROs. You have all of these things coming up in various forms. And I think it's important that we push the federal administration and the Department of Justice to be more engaging and looking at these issues to determine whether or not there should be pattern and practice investigations around discipline in these school districts as an affront to the due process interests of students. This is a big deal at so many levels that even before we got any change to existing laws, there are laws that are on the books now that are not being fully enforced, that if we just start getting some of that, you're not going to get too many Judge Morris Overstreet on the bench who are sensitive enough to understand where his judicial prudence fits within this mechanism. But we got to put the pressure points out there. And so get the Darrell Joneses. We got to have pools of money to be able to join with the ACLUs and the Legal Defense Fund in these litigation profiles at state level, because they can't take on everything. How do we create a mechanism that allows us to leverage litigation and legislation to the benefit of not just our people, but as Reverend Jackson would always say, there's never been anything that has benefited Black people that didn't benefit all people. It will make the system better for everybody.
Amen to that. Well, Judge Overstreet, because I love the fact that you're saying this wonderful instrument called the internet. You keep digging up.
Right. It can do some good if you use it right.
Well, while you're at it, find that boy's parents, since they're hiding out.
Right. Well, no. Oh, yeah. That's what. Yeah, we'll get that done too.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I don't want any harm to come to this child or his parents. I want accountability though. And I want the administrators, I want the teacher who heard this young man call her the N-word in the classroom. I want to know who the teacher is. You shouldn't be working in the system. You shouldn't be.
Right.
Unless you decide you're gonna go another way, you need to say, I was wrong. You need not say it. You need to prove it. Because see, I don't know how you're grading Black students. There's a whole lot that's up under here. A whole lot of kids didn't get to finish high school or get to college because of you.
Well, the thing about it is, and you're right. I would never encourage violence against
Anyone.
a person who is violating the law, or anyone. But if we find out who he is, it's just like, back in the day, you used to call them peace bonds, but restraining orders, injunctions. If we can establish that this young man did it, and from all accounts it looks like he did, what's wrong with going to court and asking a court of competent jurisdiction to order him to leave her alone, to not say things, to not be around her, and things of that nature. And see, that's, we're going to change it through legislation, but we're going to get active through litigation. Something should happen to him.
Thank you.
If there's a possibility of filing a lawsuit against him, then that ought to be pursued.
That's what I believe. I'm like, the corporate media are shielding him. They know who he is. They know who that boy is. Like the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is holding Carolyn Bryant's confession, her memoir, which is a full-on confession about what really happened to Emmett Till. These people have a whole system that protects them, and this corporate media are protecting this boy, and they're protecting his mother and his father.
Yeah, they printed her name, so.
Yeah. And you've taken pictures of her parents. They don't have any peace. Oh, no. I want to know who he is. I want to know who your mom and your daddy are. I want to know who you are. I want to know.
I want to take legal action against him, yes.
I think that needs to happen.
We'll find some investigator with a good heart and to dig into this.
Why do you think that that's important, Judge Overstreet?
I think it's important. In law, we talk about the objectives of the Texas Penal Code. And we have found that the certainty of punishment is more of a deterrent to the severity of punishment. And so if people who engage in this are certain to be punished, then that's more of a deterrent than the severity of the punishment that they receive, the certainty of it. If one knows that they're not going to get away with something, that's a better deterrent than if they're punished, if they're found. And so we want to emphasize the certainty of punishment. That's why it's important to find out who he is and to deal with him. It brings about the deterrent effect through the certainty of punishment. You do this, it is certain you're going to be punished.
Well, amen to that. Gentlemen.
So always remember that the certainty of punishment is more of a deterrent than the severity of punishment.
Why is that, do you believe? As my great-grandmother would say, do you reckon?
Well, because if you do something wrong, something's going to happen to you. Something's going to happen. And if you know that it's for certain it's going to happen, you're more likely not to do it. The certainty of punishment.
That's how my mom and daddy ran their house. The certainty.
The certainty of punishment. Severity, the certainty of it.
It's going to happen.
This is going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Look, I know how my brothers and my sister would look at each other. Mom and dad are going to have a fit. Don't even think about it. Not maybe they know that something gonna happen. Ooh, something's gonna happen. Ooh, oh yeah, no. We laugh about that now. Like, oh wait a minute. Ooh,
yeah.
Y'all better not. And I thank you for that, because this is I'm ready to do more work, because I'm so glad that now that about it, which is what we do, Daryl and Robert and Reverend Dr. Yeary. This is what we do. We bring the information to the people, and we bring the information to you, and then we can move forward. And so that just it makes it worth my while to get up at 2:00 in the morning and to have many of these 20, 21 hour days. Because you know, when you see injustice, you need to do something about it. You need to do something about it. It is your problem. One day it will happen to you or someone you love. It's gonna happen. As my mom and daddy used to say, it's gonna happen. Keep on living. It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And so, Ms. Jackson, you need to contact the board members, in all fairness, I think, and give them an opportunity to appear on your show.
Okay.
And explain their action or inaction.
Thank you.
It's an opportunity. Hey, would you all like to appear and tell us what you know? Tell us what you didn't do. Tell us what you did do.
Okay.
But I'm going to draft my letters today.
Oh, yeah. Find these people.
While it's fresh on my mind.
Absolutely.
And to Judge's point, right, that's when we talk about how do you create mass action, right, one of the things that you're doing letter writing campaigns is that it's very often a draft communication of a form letter that allows constituents or interested persons to insert their information. It speaks to the same set of concerns, facts, circumstances. And so they're actually tracking those communications as part of the public record. Those documents get codified. And so you don't have to be real creative with it. If there's a way to kind of help with just kind of having a draft template that folks can work from, they can either use it or modify it a little bit to put their own thoughts in. Those are the kinds of things that we make this process easier for folks to be able to just do it. Sometimes we'll do a mass letter with everybody signing on. Here's the letter. Look at it, read it. If you agree with it, sign your name at the bottom, put your information and your contact information out there, and it's going out. We do it at the federal level. We do it at some state levels. There are a number of ways to do what Judge Overstreet is actually talking about, which is to make sure that you are on the record about this policy issue that's tied to an actual circumstance that's affecting a student.
Amen to that. Amen.
Yeah, I'm going to Microsoft Word right now to start drafting my letter.
You know what? I am going to connect you to Reverend, if you don't mind,
Well, tell him I
Judge.
said hello. I saw him at the National Bar meeting and just this past summer.
Yes.
He was there for a minute or two over in Memphis.
Oh, he had a ball.
we always enjoy the Reverend. Yeah.
Oh, he
always enjoy seeing the Reverend.
He had a ball. He had a ball. I said, oh, my goodness. But thank you all for being so kind to him. Thank you for being so kind.
All right, and I'll call you later. I'm when I finish my letter today,
He's gonna write his letter.
And look,
I'm writing my letter now.
Didn't you hear him on the air finding all these people?
I'm writing my letter right now.
Judge Overstreet is one of those judges in court that he listens to what you say, and he's not going to just let you throw it out there. He's going to trust but verify.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm sure all of the lawyers that practiced before him knew to bring their A game, or otherwise it's going to be a problem, right? Because the certainty of the punishment is worse than the severity of the punishment. I think that's what
With his
it is.
iPad to the right, clicking.
That's right. And I'm going to send you a copy of my letter to the school board today.
You will, because I'm going to find these
Ms.
people
Jackson.
myself. I'm going over to Reverend's office, but I'm going to have them pull letters too. And that's why I also want you to speak with Reverend, because he's very eager to know. And Todd, reach out to Reverend, please.
Okay.
Please do that. Please do that, because he is eager to move forward on this. But you know, we've got some leadership with State Representative Reynolds, with Judge Overstreet, and with Rodney Ellis, and I think we need to coordinate now and really physically go there and cover this. You know, I mean, that really needs to happen.
Yeah, we have there's a very progressive newspaper in Texas.
The Tribune?
Called the Texas Tribune.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't mind going to Lubbock.
Oh, I love the Tribune. I read it every day. I get some of my best work out of there. I mean, it's a great paper.
Like when we had that Tuya incident with that police officer making up all this stuff, sending all those black folks to the penitentiary.
Yes.
The Tribune was on the spot. And, Tuya is not, slave's not that far from Tuya.
Mm-hmm. Texas. Well,
Ms. Jackson, you have my number. If you will send me your email address, I'll send you a draft of my letter to the superintendent, the principal, and members of the school board.
I will do it right now.
Okay.
I will do.
And you'll have that in your inbox before lunchtime.
I'll text it right now. I will do that because
Okay.
all right. I think it's important that we be all over this, Todd, because it's disturbing to me that so few of us, Todd and Attorney Darrell Jones, I don't know if Attorney Patillo is still with us, that so few knew who were right there, right? Mm-hmm. And I just happened to be walking through my area where I have my television, and I saw a little, a black girl on the screen, which made me stop. When you see black folks on TV, you stop. You're like, okay. When I saw the story, I said, you have got to be kidding, which made me pull out my iPad, which was sitting right there on the sofa. Let me start clicking. Wait a minute. Then I went to my main computer, started pulling things. I said, oh no, we're going to talk about this today. And Todd, I thought you were out of the country still. Otherwise, I would have called you sooner. But this is very real stuff, and we see what's happening to our children, and we've got to talk about it.
It's interesting you would mention that, right? These are the kinds of incidences. So I was in Geneva attending the first working group in preparation of the declaration that is supposed to flow from the decade of people of African descent. And that came out of the Durban conference in 2001. One of the things that they're doing is they're cataloging what are the ongoing effects of the hostilities that are directed at persons of African descent across the globe. And very often inside the educational system, we don't catalog this information for the broader human rights implication before the international bodies. And so I think there's also a need to make sure that as we are tracking these, information is flowing to the working group. There are members of the working group. Justin Hansford is a law professor at Howard Law School. He's on the working group. There are persons on the working group that I think can help document, but also disseminate this information as part of the inputs that will go into the final declaration as they're working on it over the next 2 years.
Well, this is exciting. Please, if you ever, like I said, if you want to talk about that, I would certainly love to do that. I would love that.
Just tell me, please.
No.
Let me know between you eating Chaparral's food and all that other stuff.
I'm going to do that.
I know this is the holiday season.
Do that. Right. I'm going to call her right now. With that one good hand, I want my greens. I want my string beans.
Yeah.
I want my corn. Thank you. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Judge Overstreet, good to be with you. Rep Reynolds, we'll be in touch. And I got my marching orders. The judge says his draft's going to be done by the afternoon. You don't want the judge's reply to your brief to be done before your brief is done.
It's going to be done before noon.
Well, did you hear him clicking
noon.
through the show?
He said before noon. So, in lawyer speak here, that's kind of a helpful hint. Don't have your brief come in later than my draft, right? Get yourself together. So I got to go right now. So I'm going to go do my homework because the certainty of the punishment is more important than the severity of the punishment. I'm clear. That's right. Real clear.
It's
hey, I got you. Hey, and I got my marching orders from Judge Overstreet to work on this legislation. And from all you need to do is change that May to Shell. I got it. Shell. I got it. I got my marching orders duly noted.
You do not want to be embarrassed, okay? Publicly. Oh my gosh, I have had teachers like that who. My goodness, my choir master at Howard, Dr. James Weldon Norris, would have us. We were in the chorale. He'd have us line up around the chapel, and every person in every section had to sing the whole song for him to make sure you knew your part. Said, you're not going to embarrass me at the Kennedy Center at the White House. Oh no. And you're not going to embarrass yourself.
I'm going to take my leave now because you keep giving the judge hints. Giving him tools. He's gonna get more homework. So lest I be forced to articulate the draft of my letter cold, standing against the wall of the chapel, I'm going to bid you all good morning.
Well, God bless you.
I'm going to go do my homework.
God bless you. Does anyone else? Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add before we go?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Representative Reynolds, you don't have anything else?
I thought this was very enlightening and very instructive. And I really appreciate you getting us engaged on this issue that was in our backyard and that we should have known about. But thank goodness you were paying attention that day and that now we all know. And when you know, you have no excuse not to act. So I'm fired up and I'm ready to move forward deliberately to help this young lady and other students because this is bigger than her. She represents a problem that is reoccurring and all too frequent within our school system, and that was probably pervasive in this district. And so we're going to make sure that we do our part so that we don't have another future incident that did not get mitigated. So I'm ready and I'm armed and I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you.
Absolutely, but to be fair, as you go, it wasn't your inattention. This was never brought to your attention because it was obscure.
Correct.
You know, which is where you have to call out corporate media. Yes, even corporate media, and we have to support our own media because we're the ones. It was John Johnson who published the photograph of Emmett Till. That wasn't Look magazine. It wasn't Life. John Johnson did that. We're the ones that we are waiting for. We're the ones who have to do it. My father said, the Democrats never invited me to do anything. I did it. We just did it. And so we're the ones who just have to do it. But we also have to support this media because you have to sit down and you literally have to watch everything all the time. You really, really, really do. So that you can bump into this. So you can bump into Trayvon Martin. I bumped into the Trayvon Martin story and I broke it some years ago, and then everybody else started talking about it because I just read all the time, and several other stories because I just read all the time, and you have to do it. You have to do it that way. It takes that kind of vigilance, but you also have to go on and get sponsors and whatnot so that you can continue to do it because, as my father said, freedom ain't free, and we're going to have to begin to invest in intellectual. In our intellectual capital, we're going to have to do that because these people hold meetings once a week, conservative radio and conservative media, and they come up with messaging that they carry throughout the week. That's what they do. You have to be that kind of organized, and we're going to have to do that too if we are to thrive, let alone survive in this system. So I love you all. I cannot wait to speak with you, Judge Overstreet. I'm going to find my father and State Representative Reynolds. I'd like to connect you all if you don't mind.
Okay.
If I can catch him, I'm going to catch him. I'm going to reach out to him now. In fact, as soon as I get off the air.
All right.
Because he wants to do that. So let me do that. And then if I'm able to get him, I'll go through Shelley Davis and we'll conference all of you in.
Perfect.
Okay. Love you all.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you.
Love you, Santita Jackson Show. My people. Love you. Bye-bye.